of blue preserve with loving care.
Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, illustrated by Judith Byrd-Williams. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland tells the tale of a curious girl named Alice who falls down a rabbit hole into a fantastical world filled with bizarre creatures and puzzling logic. As she encounters the various characters, her journey becomes one of self-discovery and growth. In creating this project, I realized that the heart of her story lies not in the adventure itself, but in who she becomes. Just a reminder to be courteous and respectful to your theater neighbors, to turn off your cell phone and refrain from talking during the show. Now, sit back and enjoy the presentation.
Alice was beginning to get very tired of sitting by her sister on the bank and of having nothing to do. Once or twice she had peeped into the book her sister was reading, but it had no pictures or conversations in it.
And what is the use of a book without pictures or conversations?
So she was considering in her own mind, as well as she could, for the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid, whether the pleasure of making a daisy chain would be worth the trouble of getting up and picking the daisies, when suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes ran close by her.
Come with me and hear the south winds blow. Come with me and hear the south winds blow. Come with me and hear the south winds blow. Is where I'm bound. Oh, I'm bound for where the snowdrops still were sleeping. Oh, I'm bound for where there's new life pulsing. Oh, I'm bound for where white rabbit with pink eyes ran. Is where I'm bound. Where there's plenty of fair-haired daisies, where they lifted up their foreheads to greet the vernal sun. Where there's plenty rich tints share their rare beauty, is where I'm bound. Come and go with me where sunbeams give welcome. Come and go with me where the morning air scatters the darkness. Come and go with me to where rabbits wear coats run. Is where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that place. Come and go with me to that place. Come and go to that place where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that place. Come and go with me to that place. Come and go to that place where I'm bound.
There was nothing so very remarkable in that, nor did Alice think it so very much out of the way to hear the rabbit say to itself,
Oh dear, I shall be late.
Oh dear, I shall be late. Oh dear, I shall be late. oh dear, I shall be late way beyond the blue. Oh dear, you take him too. Oh dear, you take him too. Oh dear, Savior, you take him too, way beyond the blue. I got a home in Wonderland that outshines the sun. I've got a home in Wonderland that outshines the sun. I've got a home in Wonderland that outshines the sun. Look away beyond the blue.
When she thought it over afterwards, it occurred to her that she ought to have wondered at this, but at the time it all seemed quite natural. But when the rabbit actually took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket and looked at it, and then hurried on, Alice started to her feet, for it flashed across her mind that she had never before seen a rabbit with either a waistcoat pocket or a watch to take out of it, and burning with curiosity, she ran across the field after it, and fortunately was just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. In another moment down went Alice after it, never once considering how in the world she was to get out again. The rabbit hole went straight on like a tunnel for some way, and then dipped suddenly down, so suddenly that Alice had not a moment to think about stopping herself before she found herself falling down a very deep well. Either the well was very deep, or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look about her, and to wonder what was going to happen next. First she tried to look down and make out what she was coming to, but it was too dark to see anything. Then she looked at the sides of the well, and noticed that they were filled with cupboards and bookshelves. Here and there she saw maps and pictures hung upon pegs. She took down a jar from one of the shelves as she passed. It was labelled Orange Marmalade, but to her great disappointment it was empty. She did not like to drop the jar for fear of killing somebody, so managed to put it into one of the cupboards as she fell past it. Well, thought Alice to herself, after such a fall as this, I shall think nothing of tumbling downstairs. How brave they'll all think me at home. Why, I wouldn't say anything about it, even if I fell off the top of the house, which was very likely true. Down,
Down, down, down, let my fall never come to an end. Down, 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 I must be getting somewhere. Down, 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 it must be near the center of the earth. Down, 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 let me see, that would be 4,000 miles down. Down, 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 yes, that's about the right distance. Down, 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 but then I wonder what latitude or longitude I've got to. I wonder if I shall fall right through the earth. How funny it'll seem to come out among the people that walk with their heads downward. The antipathies, I think. But I shall have to ask them what the name of the country is. Please, ma'am, is this New Zealand or Australia? And what an ignorant little girl, she'll think me for asking. No, it'll never do to ask. Perhaps I shall see it written up somewhere. I wonder how many miles before my fall comes to an end. Down, 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 let my fall never come to an end. Down, 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 I must be getting somewhere. Down, 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 it must be near the center of the earth. Down, 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 let me see, that would be 4,000 miles down. Down, 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 yes, that's about the right distance. Down, 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 but then I wonder what latitude or longitude I've got to. I wonder if I shall fall right through the earth. How funny it'll seem to come out among the people that walk with their heads downward. The antipathies, I think. But I shall have to ask them what the name of the country is. Please, ma'am, is this New Zealand or Australia? And what an ignorant little girl, she'll think me for asking. No, it'll never do to ask. Perhaps I shall see it written up somewhere. I wonder how many miles before my fall comes to an end. Down, 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 let my fall never come to an end. Down, 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 I must be getting somewhere. Down, 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 it must be near the center of the earth. Down, down, latitude or longitude, I've got to.
Went down, down, down. There was nothing else to do, so Alice soon began talking again.
Dinah'll miss me very much tonight, I should think.
Dinah was the cat.
I hope they'll remember her saucer of milk at tea time. Dinah, my dear, I wish you were down here with me. There are no mice in the air, I'm afraid, but you might catch a bat, and that's very like a mouse, you know. But do cats eat bats, I wonder?
But do cats eat bats? I wonder. But do cats eat bats? I wonder. But do cats eat bats? I wonder, way beyond the blue. Now, Dinah, tell me the truth. Tell me, did you ever hear that cats eat bats? Dinah, did you ever hear that cats eat bats? Way beyond the blue. But do cats eat bats? I wonder. But do cats eat bats? I wonder. But do cats eat bats? I wonder, way beyond the blue.
And here Alice began to get rather sleepy, and went on saying to herself, in a dreamy sort of way,
Do cats eat bats? Do cats eat bats?
and sometimes,
Do bats eat cats?
for, you see, as she couldn't answer either question, it didn't much matter which way she put it. She felt that she was dozing off, and had just begun to dream that she was walking hand in hand with Dinah, and saying to her very earnestly,
Now, Dinah, tell me the truth. Did you ever eat a bat?
when suddenly, thump, thump, down she came upon a heap of sticks and dry leaves, and the fall was over. Alice was not a bit hurt, and she jumped up onto her feet in a moment. She looked up, but it was all dark overhead. Before her was another long passage, and the White Rabbit was still in sight, hurrying down it. There was not a moment to be lost. Away went Alice like the wind, and was just in time to hear it say as it turned a corner,
Oh, my ears and whiskers! How late it's getting!
She was close behind it when she turned the corner, but the rabbit was no longer to be seen. She found herself in a long, low hall, which was lit up by a row of lamps hanging from the roof. There were doors all round the hall, but they were all locked, and when Alice had been all the way down one side and up the other, trying every door, she walked sadly down the middle, wondering how she was ever to get out again. Suddenly she came upon a little three-legged table, all made of solid glass. There was nothing on it except a tiny golden key, and Alice's first thought was that it might belong to one of the doors of the hall. But, alas, either the locks were too large or the key was too small, but at any rate it would not open any of them. However, on the second time round, she came upon a low curtain she had not noticed before, and behind it was a little door about 15 inches high. She tried the little golden key in the lock, and to her great delight it fitted. Alice opened the door, and found that it led into a small passage, not much larger than a rat-hole. She knelt down, and looked along the passage into the loveliest garden you ever saw. How she longed to get out of that dark hall, and wander about among those beds of bright flowers and those cool fountains. But she could not even get her head through the doorway.
And even if my head would go through,
thought poor Alice,
it would be of very little use without my shoulders. Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think I could if I only knew how to begin.
For, you see, so many out-of-the-way things had happened lately that Alice had begun to think that very few things indeed were really impossible.
There's no use in by this little door, so I might as well go back to the table. Oh, I'm half hoping I might find another key on it, or at any rate a book of rules for stopping people from shooting up like telescopes. Oh no, just a little bottle on it, which certainly was not here before. What's this round the bottle's neck? What's this? A paper label with the words "Drink Me" and beautifully printed on it in large letters. It's very well to say "Drink me," but I think it's time to be a little wise. I'll look first and see whether it's marked poison or not. I heard several nice little histories about children who had got burnt and eaten up by wild beasts and other unpleasant things because they would not remember the simple rules their friends had taught them, such as that a red-hot poker will burn you if you hold it too long, and that if you cut your finger very deeply with a knife, it usually bleeds. I must never forget, if you drink much from a bottle marked poison, it is almost certain to disagree with you sooner or later.
However, this bottle was not marked poison, so Alice ventured to taste it, and finding it very nice, it had in fact a sort of mixed flavour of cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast. She very soon finished it off.
What a curious feeling, said Alice. I must be shutting up like a telescope.
And so it was indeed. She was now only 10 inches high, and her face brightened up at the thought that she was now the right size for going through the little door into that lovely garden. First, however, she waited for a few minutes to see if she was going to shrink any further. She felt a little nervous about this.
For it might end, you know, said Alice to herself, in my going out altogether like a candle. I wonder what I should be like then.
I'm just like a candle, shrinking so small. I'm just like a candle when I go out altogether. I'm just like a candle, I wonder what I would be like then. Fancy what the flame of a candle is like after the candle is blown out. I don't even remember ever having seen such a thing. Nothing happened, I can go into the garden at once. Nothing happened, the key to the door. Oh me, oh my, I left the little golden key. Oh me, oh my, it's back to the table. Oh me, oh my, impossible to reach it. I can see it quite plainly through the glass, and I can't reach it. Oh.
And she tried her best to climb up one of the legs of the table, but it was too slippery, and when she had tired herself out with trying, the poor little thing sat down and cried.
Come, there's no use in crying like that,
said Alice to herself, rather sharply.
I advise you to leave off this minute.
She generally gave herself very good advice, though she very seldom followed it, and sometimes she scolded herself so severely as to bring tears into her eyes. And once she remembered trying to box her own ears for having cheated herself in a game of croquet she was playing against herself. For this curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people.
But it's no use now, thought poor Alice, to pretend to be two people. Why, there's hardly enough of me left to make one respectable person.
Soon her eye fell on a little glass box.
I spy with my eye a little glass box. I spy with my little eye, light under the table. I spy with my little eye a very small cake. Eat me, eat me, eat me, were beautifully words marked in currants. Well, 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 let's eat it. Well, 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 can I reach the key? And if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way I'll get into the garden. Well, 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 I don't care which happens. Which way will I grow? Which way can I reach the key? Will it make me large? I'll set to work and finish off the cake. Which way, I don't care what happens. Well, 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 let's eat it. Well, 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 can I reach the key? And if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door. So either way I'll get into the garden. Well, 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 I don't care which happens. Which way will I grow? Which way can I reach the key? Will it make me large? I'll set to work and finished off the cake. Which way, I don't care what happens. Which way will I grow? Which way can I reach the key? Will it make me large? I'll set to work and finished off the cake. Which way, I don't care what happens. Which way will I, a little glass box? Which way will I, lying under the table? I spy with my little eye a very small cake. Eat me, were beautifully marked in chorus, so I ate it. Why ate it?
To feel which way it was growing, and she was quite surprised to find that she remained the same size. To be sure, this generally happens when one eats cake, but Alice had got so much into the way of expecting nothing but out-of-the-way things to happen that it seemed quite dull and stupid for life to go on in the common way. So she set to work and very soon finished off the cake.
I'll manage better this time, she said to herself,
and began by taking the little golden key and unlocking the door that led into the garden. Then she went to work nibbling at the mushroom. She had kept a piece of it in her pocket till she was about a foot high. Then she walked down the little passage, and then she found herself at last in the beautiful garden, among the bright flower beds and the cool fountains. And the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was sitting between them, fast asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and talking over its head.
Very uncomfortable for the dormouse,
thought Alice.
Only, as it's asleep, I suppose it doesn't mind.
The table was a large one, but the three were all crowded together at one corner of it.
No room,
they cried out.
No room, I see you coming, Only the pure at heart shall sit at my crimson table. I ain't got any room for you, so before you sit, don't. I shall see you through the leafy trees so still. I'll see you in every gentle whisper of the silent endless night. I'll see you in the stars that twinkle in the sky, in every breath of Wonderland, but you can't sit here. No room, I see you coming, Only the pure at heart shall sit at my crimson table. I ain't got any room for you, so before you sit, don't.
There's plenty of room,
said Alice indignantly, and she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table.
Have some wine,
the March Hare said in an encouraging tone. Alice looked all round the table, but there was nothing on it but tea.
I don't see any wine,
she remarked.
There isn't any,
said the March Hare.
Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it,
said Alice angrily. It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited, said the March Hare.
I didn't know it was your table,
said Alice.
It's laid for a great many more than 3.
Your hair wants cutting,
said the Hatter. He had been looking at Alice for some time, with great curiosity, and this was his first speech.
You should learn not to make personal remarks,
Alice said with some severity.
It's very rude.
The Hatter opened his eyes very wide on hearing this, but all he said was,
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
Come, we shall have some fun now,
thought Alice.
I'm glad they've begun asking riddles. I believe I can guess that,
she added aloud. Do you mean that you think you can find out the answer to it? Said the March Hare.
Exactly so,
said Alice. Then you should say what you mean, the March Hare went on.
I do,
Alice hastily replied.
At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know.
Not the same thing a bit, said the Hatter. You might just as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see. You might as well say, added the March Hare, I like what I get is the same thing as I get what I like. You might as well say, added the Dormouse, who seemed to be talking in his sleep, that I breathe when I sleep is the same thing as I sleep when I breathe. It is the same thing with you, said the Hatter, and here the conversation dropped, and the party sat silent for a minute, while Alice thought over all she could remember about ravens and writing desks, which wasn't much. The Hatter was the first to break the silence. What day of the month is it? He said, turning to Alice. He had taken his watch out of his pocket, and was looking at it uneasily, shaking it every now and then, and holding it to his ear. Alice considered a little, and then said,
The 4th.
2 days wrong, sighed the Hatter. I told you butter wouldn't suit the works, he added, looking angrily at the March Hare. It was the best butter, the March Hare meekly replied. Yes, but some crumbs must have got in as well, the Hatter grumbled. You shouldn't have put it in with the bread knife. The March Hare took the watch and looked at it gloomily. Then he dipped it into his cup of tea and looked at it again. But he could think of nothing better to say than his first remark. It was the best butter, you know. Alice had been looking over his shoulder with some curiosity.
What a funny watch. It tells the day of the month and doesn't tell what o'clock it is.
Why should it? Muttered the Hatter. Does your watch tell you what year it is? Of course not, Alice replied very readily. But that's because it stays the same year for such a long time together. Which is just the case with mine, said the Hatter. Alice felt dreadfully puzzled. The Hatter's remark seemed to have no sort of meaning in it, and yet it was certainly English. I don't quite understand you, she said, as politely as she could. The Dormouse is asleep again, said the Hatter, and he poured a little hot tea upon its nose. The Dormouse shook its head impatiently, and said without opening its eyes, Of course, just what I was going to remark myself. Have you guessed the riddle yet? The Hatter said, turning to Alice again. No, I give it up, Alice replied. What's the answer? I haven't the slightest idea, said the Hatter. Nor I, said the March Hare. Alice sighed wearily. I do think you might do something better with the time, she said, than waste it in asking riddles that have no answers. If you knew time as well as I do, said the Hatter, you wouldn't talk about wasting it. It's him. I don't know what you mean, said Alice. Of course you don't, the Hatter said, tossing his head contemptuously. I dare say you never even spoke to time. Perhaps not, Alice cautiously replied. But I know I have to beat time when I learn music. Ah, that accounts for it, said the Hatter. He won't stand beating. Now, if you only kept on good terms with him, he'd do almost anything you liked with the clock. For instance, suppose it were 9 o'clock in the morning, just time to begin lessons. You'd only have to whisper a hint to time, and round goes the clock in a twinkling. 1:30, time for dinner. I only wish it was, the March Hare said to itself in a whisper. That would be grand, certainly, said Alice thoughtfully. But then I shouldn't be hungry for it, you know. Not at first, perhaps, said the Hatter. But you could keep it to 1:30 as long as you liked. Is that the way you manage? Alice asked.
It was at the great concert given by Queen of Hearts. I had to sing, is where I went bad, you know. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder where you're at. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat. When the Queen jumped up, bawled out, she said, he's murdering the time off with his head. Oh, twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder where you're at. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat. And ever since that day, yesterday, today, tomorrow, every day for me now, it's always 6 o'clock. That's why there are so many tea things I put out on the table. It's always tea time, and we've no time to wash the things between time. to watch the things between time. So I keep moving around as the things get used up. Used up, as the things get used up. Twinkle, twinkle, twinkle. That's why there are so many tea things are put out on the table. It's always tea time, and we've no time to watch the things between time. So I keep moving around as the things get used up. As the things get used up, twinkle, twinkle.
But what happens when you come to the beginning again? Alice ventured to ask. Suppose we change the subject, the March Hare interrupted, yawning. I'm getting tired of this. I vote the young lady tells us a story. I'm afraid I don't know one, said Alice, rather alarmed at the proposal. Then the Dormouse shall, they both cried. Wake up, Dormouse! And they pinched it on both sides at once. The Dormouse slowly opened his eyes. I wasn't asleep, he said in a hoarse, feeble voice. I heard every word you fellows were saying. Tell us a story, said the March Hare. Yes, please do, pleaded Alice. And be quick about it, added the Hatter, or you'll be asleep again before it's done. Once upon a time there were 3 little sisters, the Dormouse began in a great hurry, and their names were Elsie, Lacey, and Tilly, and they lived at the bottom of a well. What did they live on? Said Alice, who always took a great interest in questions of eating and drinking. They lived on treacle, said the Dormouse, after thinking a minute or two. They couldn't have done that, you know, Alice gently remarked. They'd have been ill. So they were, said the Dormouse. Very ill. Alice tried to fancy to herself what such an extraordinary way of living would be like, but it puzzled her too much, so she went on, But why did they live at the bottom of a well? Take some more tea, the March Hare said to Alice, very earnestly. I've had nothing yet, Alice replied in an offended tone, so I can't take more. You mean you can't take less, said the Hatter. It's very easy to take more than nothing. Nobody asked your opinion, said Alice. Who's making personal remarks now? The Hatter asked triumphantly. Alice did not quite know what to say to this, so she helped herself to some tea and bread and butter, and then turned to the Dormouse and repeated her question. Why did they live at the bottom of a well? The Dormouse again took a minute or two to think about it, and then said, It was a treacle well. There's no such thing. Alice was beginning very angrily, but the Hatter and the March Hare went, Shh, shh, and the Dormouse sulkily remarked, If you can't be civil, you'd better finish the story for yourself. No, please go on, Alice said very humbly. I won't interrupt again. I dare say there may be one. One indeed, said the Dormouse indignantly. However, he consented to go on. And so, these 3 little sisters, they were learning to draw, you know. What did they draw? Said Alice, quite forgetting her promise. Treacle, said the Dormouse, without considering at all this time. I want a clean cup, interrupted the Hatter. Let's all move one place on. He moved on as he spoke, and the Dormouse followed him. The March Hare moved into the Dormouse's place, and Alice, rather unwillingly, took the place of the March Hare. The Hatter was the only one who got any advantage from the change, and Alice was a good deal worse off than before, as the March Hare had just upset the milk jug into his plate. Alice did not wish to offend the Dormouse again, so she began very cautiously. But I don't understand. Where did they draw the treacle from? You can draw water out of a water well, said the Hatter. So I should think you could draw a treacle out of a treacle well, eh, stupid? But they were in the well, Alice said to the Dormouse, not choosing to notice this last remark. Of course they were, said the Dormouse. Well in. This answer so confused poor Alice that she let the Dormouse go on for some time without interrupting it. They were learning to draw, the Dormouse went on, yawning and rubbing its eyes, for it was getting very sleepy. And they drew all manner of things, everything that begins with an M. Why with an M? Said Alice. Why not? Said the March Hare. Alice was silent. The Dormouse had closed its eyes by this time, and was going off into a doze, but on being pinched by the Hatter, it woke up again with a little shriek, and went on, That begins with an M, such as mousetraps, and the moon, and memory, and muchness. You know, you say things are much of a muchness. Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of a muchness?
Really, now you ask me, said Alice, very much confused. I don't think...
Then you shouldn't talk, said the Hatter. This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could bear. She got up in great disgust and walked off. The Dormouse fell asleep instantly, and neither of the others took the least notice of her going, though she looked back once or twice, half hoping that they would call after her. The last time she saw them, they were trying to put the Dormouse into the teapot.
At any rate, I'll never go there again,
said Alice as she picked her way through the wood.
It's the stupidest tea party I ever was at in all my life.
Just as she said this, she noticed that one of the trees had a door leading right into it.
That's very curious,
she thought.
But everything's curious today. I think I may as well go in at once.
And in she went. Once more she found herself in the long hall. Alice's evidence. "Here!" cried Alice, quite forgetting in the flurry of the moment how large she had grown in the last few minutes, and she jumped up in such a hurry that she tipped over the jury box with the edge of her skirt, upsetting all the jurymen onto the heads of the crowd below, and there they lay sprawling about, reminding her very much of a globe of goldfish she had accidentally upset the week before.
"Oh, I beg your pardon,"
she exclaimed in a tone of great dismay, and began picking them up again as quickly as she could, for the accident of the goldfish kept running in her head, and she had a vague sort of idea that they must be collected at once and put back into the jury box, or they would die. "The trial cannot proceed," said the king in a very grave voice, "until all the jurymen are back in their proper places. All," he repeated with great emphasis, looking hard at Alice as he said so. Alice looked at the jury box and saw that in her haste she had put the lizard in head downwards, and the poor little thing was waving its tail about in a melancholy way, being quite unable to move. She soon got it out again and put it right.
"Not that it signifies much,"
she said to herself.
"I should think it would be quite as much use in the trial one way up as the other."
As soon as the jury had a little recovered from the shock of being upset, and their slates and pencils had been found and handed back to them, they set to work very diligently to write out a history of the accident, all except the lizard, who seemed too much overcome to do anything but sit with its mouth open, gazing up into the roof of the court. "What do you know about this business?" the king said to Alice.
"Nothing,"
said Alice. "Nothing whatever?" persisted the king.
"Nothing whatever,"
said Alice. "That's very important," the king said, turning to the jury. They were just beginning to write this down on their slates, when the White Rabbit interrupted.
"Unimportant, your majesty means, of course,"
he said in a very respectful tone, but frowning and making faces at him as he spoke. "Unimportant, of course, I meant," the king hastily said, and went on to himself in an undertone, "Important, unimportant, unimportant, important," as if he were trying which word sounded best. Some of the jury wrote it down important, and some unimportant. Alice could see this as she was near enough to look over their slates. "But it doesn't matter a bit," she thought to herself. At this moment the king, who had been for some time busily writing in his notebook, called out, "Silence!" and read out from his book, "Rule 42, all persons more than a mile high to leave the court." Everybody looked at Alice.
I'm not a mile high,
said Alice. "You are," said the king.
"Nearly 2 miles high,"
added the queen.
"Well, I shan't go, at any rate,"
said Alice.
"Besides, that's not a regular rule. You invented it just now."
"It's the oldest rule in the book," said the king.
"Then it ought to be number 1,
said Alice. The king shut his notebook hastily. "Consider your verdict," he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice.
"There's more evidence to come yet, please, your majesty,"
said the White Rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry.
"This paper has just been picked up." "What's in it?"
said the queen.
"I haven't opened it yet," said the White Rabbit, "but it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody."
"It must have been that," said the king, "unless it was written to nobody, which isn't usual, you know." Who was it directed to? Said one of the jurymen. It isn't directed at all, said the White Rabbit. In fact, there's nothing written on the outside. He unfolded the paper as he spoke, and added, It isn't a letter after all. It's a set of verses. Are they in the prisoner's handwriting? Asked another of the jurymen. No, they're not, said the White Rabbit. And that's the queerest thing about it. The jury all looked puzzled. He must have imitated somebody else's hand, said the king. The jury all brightened up again. Please, your majesty, said the knave, I didn't write it, and I can't prove I did. There's no name signed at the end. If you didn't sign it, said the king, that only makes the matter worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you'd have signed your name like an honest man. There was a general clapping of hands at this. It was the first really clever thing the king had said that day. That proves his guilt, said the queen. It proves nothing of the sort, said Alice. Why, you don't even know what they're about. Read them, said the king. The White Rabbit put on his spectacles. Where shall I begin, please, your majesty? He asked. Begin at the beginning, the king said gravely, and go on till you come to the end. Then stop.
Where shall I begin, please, your majesty?
They told me you had been to her. I mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her one, they gave him two. You gave us three or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free, exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret kept from all the rest, between yourself and me. I mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her one, they gave him two. You gave us three or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free, exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret kept from all the rest, between yourself and me. No, let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret kept from all the rest, between yourself and me.
That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet, said the king, rubbing his hands. So, now let the jury... If any one of them can explain it, said Alice. She had grown so large in the last few minutes that she wasn't a bit afraid of interrupting him. I'll give him sixpence. I don't believe there's an atom of meaning in it. The jury all wrote down on their slates, she doesn't believe there's an atom of meaning in it, but none of them attempted to explain the paper. If there's no meaning in it, said the king, that saves a world of trouble, you know, as we needn't try to find any. And yet, I don't know, he went on, spreading out the verses on his knee and looking at them with one eye. I seem to see some meaning in them after all. Said I could not swim. You can't swim, can you? He added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. "Do I look like it?" he said, which he certainly did not, being made entirely of cardboard.
"All right so far,"
said the king, and he went on muttering over the verses to himself.
"We know it to be true. That's the jury, of course. I gave her 1, they gave him 2. Why, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know."
"But it goes on, they all returned from him to you," said Alice.
"Why, there they are,"
said the king triumphantly, pointing to the tarts on the table.
"Nothing can be clearer than that. Then, again, before she had this fit. You never had fits, my dear, I think?"
he said to the queen.
"Never,"
said the queen furiously, throwing an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke.
"Then the words don't fit you,"
said the king, looking round the court with a smile. There was a dead silence.
"It's a pun,"
the king added in an offended tone, and everybody laughed.
"Let the jury consider their verdict,"
the king said, for about the 20th time that day.
"No, no,"
said the queen.
"Sentence first, verdict afterwards."
"Stuff and nonsense," said Alice loudly.
"The idea of having the sentence first." "Hold your tongue,"
said the queen, turning purple.
"I won't,"
said Alice.
"Off with her head,"
the queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved.
"Who cares for you?"
said Alice. She had grown to her full size by this time.
"You're nothing but a pack of cards."
At this the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her. She gave a little scream, half of fright and half of anger, and tried to beat them off, and found herself lying on the bank, with her head in the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees upon her face.
"Wake up, Alice, dear,"
said her sister.
"Why, what a long sleep you've had." "Oh, I've had such a curious dream,"
said Alice, and she told her sister, as well as she could remember them, all these strange adventures of hers that you have just been reading about. And when she had finished, her sister kissed her and said,
"It was a curious dream, dear, certainly. But now run into your tea. It's getting late."
So Alice got up and ran off, thinking while she ran, as well she might, what a wonderful dream it had been. But her sister sat still just as she left her, leaning her head on her hand, watching the setting sun, and thinking of little Alice and all her wonderful adventures, till she too began dreaming after a fashion.
First she dreamed of little Alice herself, and once again the tiny hands were clasped upon her knee, and the bright eager eyes were looking up into hers. She could hear the very tones of her voice, and see that queer little toss of her head, to keep back the wandering hair that would always get into her eyes. And still as she listened, or seemed to listen, the whole place around her became alive with the strange creatures of her little sister's dream. The long grass rustled at her feet as the white rabbit hurried by. The frightened mouse splashed his way through the neighboring pool. She could hear the rattle of the teacups as the March Hare and his friends shared their never-ending meal, and the shrill voice of the queen ordering off her unfortunate guests to execution. Once more the pig baby was sneezing on the Duchess' knee, while plates and dishes crashed around it. Once more the shriek of the Griffon, the squeaking of the lizard's slate pencil, and the choking of the suppressed guinea pigs filled the air, mixed up with the distant sobs of the miserable mock turtle. So she sat on with closed eyes and half believed herself in Wonderland, though she knew she had but to open them again, and all would change to dull reality. The grass would be only rustling in the wind, and the pool rippling to the waving of the reeds. The rattling teacups would change to tinkling sheep bells, and the queen's shrill cries to the voice of the shepherd boy, and the sneeze of the baby, the shriek
of the grapevine and all the other queer noises would change. She knew to the confused clamor of the busy farmyard, while the lowing of the cattle in the distance would take the place of the mock turtle's heavy sobs. Lastly, she pictured to herself how this same little sister of hers would, in the aftertime, be herself a grown woman, and how she would keep through all her riper years the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children and make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland of long ago, and how she would feel with all their simple sorrows and find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days. And the happy summer days. Oh, Byrd-Williams. So, she knows. What did I? Well, and the happy summer days.
Loving hearts to usher in a brighter, nobler day, to make our age the fairest one on which the sun has smiled, to plant the roots of coming years in mercy, love, and truth, and bid our weary saddened earth again renew our youth, and a child shall lead the way.